Hello there, fellow humans, and welcome to another episode of your replays. And we start off on Vineyards with Fesk in the Fosh 155 with a pretty bad idea that turns out quite well in the end. And why do I say bad idea? Well, because going city on pretty much any map is quite the big reduction to your chance of winning. Because if you go city, you win less. That's pretty much how any map works. In this case, the enemy has one medium tank and Fesk's team has 0 medium tanks. So if the enemy team here is also in the city, or let's say the enemy team sends a few bad players into the city and 7 versus 3 or 4 is easy to overwhelm, then this battle can be won from the city. So basically, if you have city versus field, field pretty much always wins unless they're terrible players. However, if you have 7 people in the city and the enemy sends 2 or 3 and you can defeat those very quickly, then obviously you have a 2-tank advantage. And that's what looks like is happening here as well, and Fesk is going straight for it. He's using the tungsten and the speed boost in this vehicle, which I wouldn't recommend on a tank destroyer. I also wouldn't recommend being that Kranwagen because he missed again right there. Missed 2 shots. He also doesn't have a camouflage and he's not in a clan, so I assume that to be a very bad player that just started playing the game. It's maybe his first tier 10 right there. Now, you wouldn't want this to be a medium because a medium could flank the Fosh here. You want to keep the back of the Fosh up against some kind of house to not get surrounded. But you don't want to keep it up against the back like that. You want to get around the corner. I appreciate that there are other people that are also bad at driving, just like me. But now, the Kranwagen takes another shot. Here comes the IS-8 as well, which I don't know what he's doing. He arrives very late and not very well. And now 2 enemies are already dead. And here, 1 shot. Where does it go? Where does it go? Pick one, pick one. Pick the IS-8, aim, and there we go. And 2 enemies are already dead. And there is the T-54. What the enemy team would have had to do here to counteract this is go around Fesk's team here and attack them from the rear. But that's not what happened. They're simply sitting in front of Fesk and Fesk's team here, and they're letting themselves be absolutely decimated. So terrible play on the part of the enemy here, and well done by the team for pushing forward and using the advantage that has been given here, having 7 tanks and attacking essentially 3 in the city. That works out quite well, and obviously it is also very much a part of Fesk's 5,000 damage that 3 enemies are already dead, and that Rhinoceronte camping in the back of the spawn. Campers don't win, because if you lose map control, well, you lose control over the match as well. And if the enemy is in any way competent, if they have map control and match control, they will win. Sometimes, very rarely, they throw away, but in that case, if you have the map control and you lose, that's on you. And here, well, there's only 2 tanks left standing here, really, in front, and 1 fancy Minotauro somewhere off to the side. Now, this is a pretty risky peek because Fesk was shot earlier by the Minotauro, so it is known where he is, roughly. Somewhere over there in the city or towards the cap circle area on the team's side. So, in that case, that was a pretty risky peek there on the IS-8 because the Minotauro could have still been watching there. But now, 49 hit points. Yes, send it. That is exactly what I would do as well. Why would you sit back? 49 hit points is all you need. 1 hit point is all you need. Send it. Go for it. Get that extra damage. And with 3.8 interclip here on the Fosh and the tungsten, that's gonna hurt, buddy. That's gonna hurt because that is gonna be a double tungsten right there. And the Minotauro doesn't pen the Fosh, but it wasn't enough to finish off the Minotauro. But it is 7,600 damage right there. Very impressive. Now, the enemy team has pretty much showed perfectly how not to play, especially not from the city, because if you're in the city, you push through. You go straight for it. And if you find a few tanks there, you take them out, and you have a decent chance to win. But if you start camping in the city, that's pretty much when it's over. That's kind of what the enemy team did. They didn't split it properly. They didn't try to flank or anything. They just sat there and got themselves chewed to absolute bits by Fesk. And for the second battle, we've got more Fesk. This time in the Lion. which is not a very tank I would recommend. I mean, I think that the Progetto 65 is a better tank than the Lion, and I wouldn't really want to buy a tank that is worse than a tech tree that you can research and grind for free. So I would neither recommend the Löwe nor the Karel for that matter. They're not really that interesting. So get yourself a Progetto and you'll be fine. And especially the Lion, it's a beat down bad Leopard with a fancy gimmick. I would much rather have the original Leopard. However, even this vehicle is capable of good gameplay in the right positions. And Fesk is once again using the tungsten shells here, which obviously give you extra damage on every shot. And tungsten shells, especially in auto-loaders or auto-reloaders, can be extremely useful. Tungsten shells on a single shotgun oftentimes doesn't really make a lot of sense, because obviously you will be only able to use it for one shot, because it expires quite quickly. However, if you have an auto-loader, an auto-reloader, and you have a short interclip, then you can use the tungsten for pretty much your entire clip, which makes the tank quite a lot more effective. And speaking of effective, that is, in my experience at least, the most ineffective autoloader in the game, the T-54E1, because a lot of players are really terrible with that vehicle, and I don't know why. If you know, or I mean, it's just my observation really that a lot of T-54E1 players are terrible, but maybe that's just me, maybe it's just my observation. Put it in the comments, what do you think is the worst played tank in the entire game? Like, the tank that has the worst players overall. Now, obviously, it's currently not the Lion, because Fesk is making quite a fest out of destroying the enemies right here. And now, which the enemy should have done last game, Fesk has done exactly that. Surrounded the enemy team, and now they're being attacked from two sides, and this is very risky here. That is how I like it, right? Have some fun, get that adrenaline spiking. It's not a rational thing to do, it's not the right thing to do, but it is definitely the fun thing to do, to take a peek on a 183 and bait him into missing. That is essentially very fun gameplay, and I very much approve of that. So, yes, getting high damage is fun, but making a 183 miss is probably even more fun as well. So remember from this game right here that if you play a little bit like a clown, it's gonna be a lot better match. You're not gonna suffer. I mean, look at this. 4k damage already. Pika 183 as you like. Even if you play a bit risky, it is a lot more fun, and you will still have excellent results anyway, if you know what you're doing, right? However, don't play risky if you don't have the great results. Of course, that's the takeaway from this video. If you have good results, try playing more risky. Try making it a little bit more fun. Push it a little bit. See how far you can go, right? Because that is going to make the game a lot more fun. And thank you very much to Fesk for proving to us that being a little bit on the nose and taking risks doesn't mean that you're not going to do really well. So if you're already doing decent, try it. Try how far you can push it, because you can learn a lot. Because sometimes you push it too far and you know that you can't do that, and sometimes you push it and you find out that you can do something, and it will make you an even better player. So with that said, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.